Turf Business TV are today joined by Watford's Scott Tingley. Scott, thanks for joining us. We want to talk to you a bit about your career so far and where it might be going. So why don't you tell us where it all started out?
Yeah, so I think right from the start, I left school. I'd done some work experience when I was at school, where I worked at a golf course at Stoke Poges. And golf's kind of my main passion in terms of sport. Started off there, but having got a full-time job, they actually had to make some redundancies around the club and couldn't actually end up taking me on. So as much as I was due to go there when I finished school, I never ended up actually making it there. I then worked for my dad doing a little bit of contracting work and maybe did around about 8 months of that before kind of stumbling across a job at Chelsea, to be honest. I got the opportunity to go and work with Jason and Kevin at Stamford Bridge, which, being a Chelsea fan, it just made perfect sense. So I decided to take that up. I was there for just under 6 years, I think, eventually, before on the third attempt managed to get a job at Arsenal. So I pushed and pushed, and I had an interview about 6 months before I actually ended up taking a job. And at that point, I just went back for like a second practical interview, having had the first one 6 months before, and started there a month later. So obviously then nearly 7 years at Arsenal, and then I found myself at Watford.
You started out, you say, contracting with your dad. Was that turf contracting or was that a different type of contracting?
Yes, yeah. So it was mainly construction work. We built the training ground for the England rugby team at Penny Hill Park. So we built their pitch. We built some various tennis courts, right from the sort of. It was mainly construction stuff, but we've done a little bit of maintenance as well, like on the side. A couple of maintenance contracts that we used to look after. I think Staines Town Football Club was one, and London Irish Rugby Club, their training ground, which he still does to date. So that's kind of a long-standing contract of his. Other than that, just a lot of building, a lot of construction work. We had quite a busy summer with the England rugby team training ground, and then it just kind of went a little bit quiet winter time. He never used to be particularly busy in the winter, as most contractors aren't, I guess. And the opportunity came up at Chelsea, and I couldn't turn it down, really. It was something that I really wanted to do.
So, obviously your dad's very well known, and your kind of history as a family is steeped in the industry. Was there anywhere else that you ever looked in terms of a job?
No, I don't think so. I kind of always wanted to do this, and I've kind of always been really driven to not be Steve Tingley's son. I want to be Scott Tingley, and that's it. And it's difficult because at times the family name can really benefit me, and has definitely benefited me, whereas others not so much. So I think it just certain people's relationships with my dad maybe might affect their sort of judgment on me, and I never really wanted it to be that way. I wanted it to be Scott Tingley and not Steve Tingley's son. So that's quite important for me that I went down that route, really.
Okay, so you're at Chelsea, but you say you kind of had a few attempts at getting to Arsenal. Was it a desire that you wanted to get to work at Arsenal?
No, I think at the end of the day, I'm a Chelsea fan. I loved every minute of being there, and I got to the point where match days were seen almost as a little bit of a chore for me. I liked the Monday to Friday. I liked the work side of it, the match days and the long hours and stuff like that. I just kind of got to a point where I wasn't enjoying them anymore, and I think that kind of took the love out of Chelsea Football Club for me a little bit, really, and that's not where I wanted to be. So I thought I want to progress. The only way I see myself progressing is moving to Arsenal, because just some of the things that they were doing. I mean, I was in reasonable sort of contact, sort of a couple of times a year, whether a game be at the at Highbury as it was at the time, or at Stamford Bridge. I used to see Paul Burgess, Paul Ashcroft used to come and have a beer with us at games and stuff like that. And I always just loved how passionately they spoke about groundsmanship, and I just felt like I could go there and learn. Albeit, obviously, never worked with either of those two, but I mean, just that general Arsenal ethos and kind of way of learning, I just saw it as a way of progressing quickly, really, and getting the sort of schooling that I needed.
So you went to work there with Steve Braddock, obviously a bit of a legend in the industry. Was that part of the pull?
Yeah, I had a conversation with my dad because a job came up there, and I actually saw it really late. And I phoned, there's a lady called Helen Whiting at the time that used to do a lot of the recruitment and stuff. And I phoned her, and she said, it actually closes today. She said, "But would you like me to speak to Steve and see if it's an option to get you in an interview?" I actually ended up interviewing the next day, which was brilliant. I suppose I didn't really have much time to prepare or much time to think about it. And like I said, I mean, I never actually got the job on that occasion, but it was. I remember having a conversation with my dad, and he just said to me, "Look, if you can work for this guy, it will only ever do you good. It's only going to stand you in good stead." And one thing he also said to me, which I now quite often remind him, is that it's the hardest I'll ever have to work in my life. Is what he said. He said, "You go and work for Steve, it's the hardest you'll ever work in your life." He said, "Because you'll leave there with all the knowledge and the skills to be able to go on and manage." And some days where I walk in the door now and I look at my dad and I just say to him, "I worked harder today than I ever worked at Arsenal." It's just the way it happened. But I never let him forget that comment. But yeah, it was my dad kind of mentioned to me about just how good Steve was and how much I'd learned from working with him. And I know me and you have had numerous conversations about that. You get it from Steve whether you like it or not. Do you know what I mean? You learn. As simple as that.
He has a reputation of creating or developing, should we say, great talent. And you look at yourself, Darren, Paul, Scott, other guys that have come through those doors and walked out and gone on to bigger and better things in their own careers, shall we say. Was that always part of your game plan?
No, not really. I never really looked at it like that. I never thought, it's a strange one, I never ever thought that as much as I had confidence in myself that I could become a head groundsman, I never actually thought it would happen. I got to a point where my dad was head groundsman at Wembley when he was 25. And when I was 26, I'm thinking, well, I failed because I'm still at Arsenal's training ground. I'm still in the learning stage, and I just thought that's it. Do you know what I mean? But it obviously doesn't work like that. And I now appreciate that the more knowledge and understanding you can have before you go into that role, then the better. But yeah, no, it's not something I necessarily set out to look at and thought, oh, that's a great place to go and become someone. It was more just what I could learn and the experience that I'd have there. So I just saw it as the best place in the industry at the time, to be honest.
Working with Steve, again, reputation as a hard taskmaster, I think you already said that. Has he got a soft and cuddly side as well?
I don't think we've ever had a hug. So, no, I don't know. I think it was strange. He is a taskmaster, but he expects so much of all of his staff, and I think that the hardest thing is he expects you to be able to do everything exactly the way he wants it done. And sometimes actually there's more than one way of doing something, so that at times become frustrating. And I think there was I always kind of done things with the best interest, but maybe sometimes fell out with Steve over stuff because it wasn't his way, it wasn't what he wanted done, and that kind of got lost on me a little bit because I looked at it and thought, hang on a minute, I'm trying to do extra, I'm trying to go above and beyond, I'm trying to look at new ways of doing things, but they're not being appreciated. And I think that's difficult. Me and him have had that conversation since, and I never ever tried to upset him. I never ever tried to go against him on anything. It was just new ways. I was passionate about it. I wanted to make the training ground better and make the pitches better and help him towards that end goal. So yeah, it is great to work for, but frustrating as well at times. And I think he'll admit it, definitely.
And you learnt a lot, obviously. But there comes a point where you decided to move on. What was the reasoning behind that?
To be honest, it all came about really quick. I know a lot of people are kind of familiar with the story of it, but I actually went home sick. I went home sick on a Tuesday morning, I think it was. And I'd struggled for a little while with some kidney problems and stuff like that. And I actually didn't have, I could manage the kidney problems all the time. I had medication, but I didn't have any medication with me. So I asked Steve if I could go home to take medication and stuff. Got home, I was just chilling at home, having taken medication and that, and my phone rang. And it was my now boss at Watford. Wanted to have a conversation with me about the possibility of going there to be their head groundsman. I didn't feel particularly well, but I took the call and I sort of gave as good an account of myself as I could over the phone. And he asked if I'd go and see him the following day. So after work the following day, I popped next door to the training ground. So a lot of people realise obviously they are literally next door. There's a hedge that separates the two. So I met him that afternoon after work. He asked if I could come back the following day in my lunch break and meet the chief executive and a few other guys at the football club, which we did, and they offered me the job there and then. I handed my notice in at Arsenal on the Thursday, and my last day was the Friday.
Oh wow! Okay.
I started at Watford on the Monday morning, which was very strange, to be honest. It all happened so quickly. It was Watford were very much keen to get the ball rolling with it, and I think time-wise, it was the end of January, so Arsenal could allow me to move straight away. Basically, it wasn't
Right.
they didn't require me. It wasn't like May, June, a real busy time of renovations and stuff like that. It was. I think if it was at that point, I'd have had to have worked a notice period. It just all kind of fell together at the right time, really. So, yeah, it was a strange situation and very quick. So, yeah, no particular reason for wanting to leave. I wasn't. We struggled with winters at the training ground. Obviously, we can only do so much, and we spent a lot of time. Steve being the taskmaster, it was you were there 8 till 4:30, and it didn't matter what the weather was like outside. He'd find something for you to do, or you should be finding something for yourself to do. So, I think we all kind of struggled around about that sort of time. We were looking to March and thinking, right, we're renovating in March, and we knew we weren't far away. So, we were kind of on the upturn of that sort of winter sort of downtime or frustrating period. So, it wasn't that I was looking to go elsewhere or anything like that, but I was desperate for that opportunity, I think. So when it came up, I was never going to turn it down.
So you get a shot at being head groundsman. You got the training facility. Were you responsible for Vicarage Road as well at that time?
Yeah, both. Yeah.
Okay. So you'd not actually looked after a stadium pitch?
At Chelsea.
At Chelsea. Okay.
Yeah, Chelsea, I was based purely at Stamford Bridge.
Right.
A little bit of the training ground, but not a lot, to be honest. I looked after Harlington pretty much on my own, or maybe with one other lad every now and then for the last sort of 6 months that we were there, and had some kind of involvement in when we moved to Cobham. We had a bit of a clear out phase. We took over from I can't remember who owned it now. I think it was UCL, similar to the site I'm on now. I think it was one of their sites, and we had a bit of tidying up to do, some old machinery that they'd kind of left overgrown in some long grass and stuff like that. We had to tidy the place up basically before any sort of main construction work happened. So I went through that period, but yeah, mainly was at Stamford Bridge for my time at Chelsea.
What level were Watford playing then?
Premier League.
Premier League at that time. Okay, so how long ago was that now?
First season up. I think it was it the first season up? I think it was, yeah. I think it was their first season back in the Premier League. So, yeah, okay. Now been in it for 5 seasons, I guess. 4 or 5 seasons.
So I guess working so close to it, you had a fair idea of what you were walking into, peeking through the hedge every now and then, or whatever, or over the hedge.
No. Well, I knew that new pitches had been constructed at the training ground. I knew that they'd been constructed by a contractor from overseas. I knew that Steve had been in to see them and was quite impressed. But what I walked into wasn't what I thought it was going to be.
Right. Okay. In what way?
They're just. At the end of the day, they had been constructed, but they hadn't been constructed to the kind of specification we'd expect in the UK.
Right.
And we were at a point where they couldn't possibly train on one pitch for any longer than one day. So it had to be trained on for that day. They'd then train on an alternative pitch while that pitch got repaired. And to be honest, they weren't great. They'd been kind of looked after by just regular mowing, seed all the time, so there was quite a heavy thatch build up, and the pitches just weren't performing the way they were supposed to. So it was something, but it was very difficult because you couldn't really and truly. What you needed to do was wave a magic wand at it, and you didn't have that opportunity. So it was more about just getting through to the end of the season. I've been quite kind of honest about that, and kind of made that point a lot, that it was I looked after someone else's pitches until the end of the season basically, and then we got the opportunity to start fresh. By that time, we'd obviously got staff in and had moved away from the contractor route. I spent probably the first 2 or 3 months managing the contractors who didn't speak a great deal of English, which was difficult in itself.
Right.
Probably had, I think 2 or 3 months of that, but then we kind of went on a recruitment process, which ended up with a team of 10, I believe, at the time. Over the 2 sites, but people came in and, depending on their notice periods and stuff, came in over a 2-3 month period. But by the end of that footballing season, we were good to go as a group. So,
when in that did you feel you started to have an impact?
With the stadium pitch, almost straight away, to be honest, because we had I think we had 3 games in the space of 2 weeks when I first started. one being 2 days after I started. It was around that FA Cup sort of time. We had an FA Cup game with Leeds. We actually played Chelsea as our first game, which was special.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so odd. Chelsea was my first game at Watford, but also my first game as kind of head groundsman at Watford on my own pitch as well. We started the following season at home to Chelsea as well, which was kind of special, really. So, or almost like it's meant to be, if you like. I think it probably straight away at the stadium, but the training ground was that took until sort of March before we could really start getting on top of things and renovating pitches and trying to produce something far sort of more superior for the following year. But yeah, it's definitely been a gradual process, particularly with the training ground. The stadium kind of turned around pretty quickly, but training ground not so much.
So at the training ground, what was the single biggest thing that you did that had an impact then?
I think just regularly doing the right things. I think there'd been a significant period of kind of, I don't want to say the wrong things being done, but just not the right cultural practices that we do in the UK and the stuff that I got taught at Arsenal. So it was implementing that kind of regular routine maintenance that was done properly and was done in the right kind of frame of mind, really, with the right knowledge behind it. So that was the main factor, definitely moving forward.
So at that point in your career, you've now got your head groundsman role. I guess you're having your impact. The next kind of landmark for you, would that be the Premier League Groundsman Award?
Yeah, probably. Well, I say that. I think the first, by going in there on the 1st of February, like I said, I had to get that pitch through to the following summer. I think one big achievement for me personally was getting my own pitch through a whole Premier League season. So for the first year, I think that was an achievement in itself, really, because it was something that you don't realise. You think you're prepared for it. You think that you've experienced everything and you know exactly what you're doing and stuff like that. But the amount of things that just challenge you. I mean, like 2 weeks before the season started, my stadium pitch looked dead. You know, I looked at it and I just thought, there's no way we're going to be ready for the first day of the season. I couldn't work out what was happening. I'd never experienced it before. I hadn't been that actively involved in the fertiliser and stuff like that. And I genuinely thought to myself, I don't know what I'm doing here. You know, I literally just thought, I don't know what way to turn and what to do. We pulled it round, and to be honest with you, the pitch for the opening day of the season looked stunning, and it was that kind of taught me that just to be confident in what you do know, if you like.
Right, okay.
And kind of push on with the understanding that you don't try and get too wrapped up in it. And I think that's something that I've got gradually, really. I've kind of learnt that. I suppose that's experience, I guess. But at first I was a little bit, I don't want to say scared to make mistakes, but maybe just rushed into thinking, what have I done? I've got that wrong. Do you know what I mean? And maybe too early, too quick to criticise myself and not really sit back and look and go, right, what has actually gone wrong and how do I put it right? So I think I've learned to do that. I think it's just maturity, I guess.
So if we move on to that Premier League award, what did that mean to you, the club and the team?
That was massive, to be honest. That was massive. It was it was great to win the award, definitely. I've never been, like I've said to people before, and I've made comments on it since when people have asked me, but I've never been a great advocate of awards. But that to me, I was so grateful to win that. Not just for me, but for Watford Football Club and for all of my staff that had worked hard and had committed to everything that I'd tried to put in place. And I think as a football club as well, it's mad how much it's appreciated. I never really saw it. I think I worked for two massive football clubs before that, and although Watford are a Premier League club, they're that family club, and everyone kind of, I don't know, we've gone from having the worst pitch in the Premier League because it was re-turfed just before I came in, the only one to have that done, to having been awarded a trophy for the best pitch within 2 seasons. To me was just like, not even to me, just to fans and stuff, just to hear people talking about it and the amount of good kind of publicity it got with the fans and like around. I never really saw anybody be awarded a Premier League trophy before for Grounds Team of the Year. But like we were on Match of the Day, it was on Sky Sports News. It just seemed to be everywhere, and it was just, I don't know, it was a strange experience because yes, I knew it happened, and I'd see photos of Tony at Man United holding his trophy and Paul at Arsenal holding his and stuff like that. I used to see it, but I used to just think it was something within the turf industry, and that's why I saw it. But like I said, we were on Match of the Day. It was mentioned on numerous TV programs and just little bits like that. I didn't realise, I suppose, how much airtime it got. I think definitely within our industry, it got a lot of airtime because I think people had gone kind of, wow, it's gone from that to being the best pitch in the Premier League that year. So, yeah, I kind of got it from that point of view. But just fans, the amount of people who used to just like stop me and talk to me about it. Like the day that we actually received the trophy against Newcastle on the last day was just like, I had to walk. I remember I had to walk from the dugout back to where our offices are. And I was stopped by 50, 60 fans, just congratulating me, people patting me on the back and stuff like that. I had to kind of walk through the fans to get there, carrying my trophy that I'd literally just been awarded. And it was strange, but it was like, it was a good experience, I suppose. Something that I'll never experience that again, I don't think. Just that first one, I think, and kind of what it meant to everyone at the football club, it just seemed to make a big difference.
So would that count as your biggest achievement to date?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I would have said so. I think, yeah, it was hard work. I didn't have many days off that year, and I think we were just, as a group, we were determined to provide the best service we possibly could. I think we were all quite fortunate that none of us at the time, so the four of us that were working at the stadium, none of us had kids, none of us had sort of, we all kind of had relationships with people, but never like, we kind of come and went as we pleased, if you like. So if we had to stay late to get something done, we did it. If we had to be in early to get a pitch prep for a game, we did it. And I think there was a real kind of emphasis around presentation of the pitch and just the overall quality of it. And to be honest, I've not produced a pitch as good as that since. Definitely not. Never before that and never after that. But just one amazing season, I think.
Not yet, anyway.
No, not yet. No. Well, the thing is, I suppose you try. I think straight after that, it was like, well, how we've made a big improvement, but what is improvement now? And I think you're looking for 1%, 2%, 3% off the back of that, and it is difficult. And I think I made changes that summer, which a lot of people would say, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But they were changes that I felt would make the pitch that extra 1%, 2%. And for one reason or another, maybe they didn't work, maybe something else didn't quite work, but never produced the same again, I don't think. At times we have certain games of the season you look at it and go, that's exactly the same as that season, that's the same pitch. But then the following week it's not quite. So I think the consistency is the big thing. I think that year it was just consistently very good every week. Whereas this year and other years it's maybe been very good for certain periods of the season and not necessarily for others. But I guess weather can play a big part in that as well. It's not just what we're doing, it's what else is going on around the football club and what's falling out of the sky and whatever at the time. So
I guess also how your fixtures fall as well has an impact, does it?
Yeah, I think that year we kind of had 2 or 3 week gaps quite regularly. So we'd have a game, then a 2 or 3 week gap, and then we'd have 2 games, then another 3 week gap. And I think it was kind of, you knew you were almost preparing for kind of cup finals, if you like. Yeah. Like every game you had 2 weeks to prepare for that game, and then you had a week to prepare for the next one. And because it was I don't want to say a quick turnaround. I mean, Saturday, Tuesday is a quick turnaround, but I think because you only had that week, it was 2 games out the way in a week, and you just manage it through that period, and then you knew you had a 3 week gap again. So I think that kind of fell that way for us that year, which I think definitely benefited us. But yeah, no, I'd like to think it wasn't because of fixtures, like it was because of what we did, I suppose. But, yeah,
I wasn't saying it was because of fixtures, Scott. I was just saying it can have an impact, is all I was saying.
Yeah, definitely does, and definitely did that season as well.
I've thrown this question at a few people over the last couple of years or so. British groundsmanship, particularly in football and stadium grounds management, is held up as the best in the world by us, I think, in the main. Do you agree with that?
From what I've seen, yeah, definitely in terms of football. I like the way they do golf in America, for instance. So would I be able to split elite level football in the UK and elite level golf in America? No, I don't think so. I actually don't think well, as I say, I don't think there's much of a comparison. I think some of the golf courses in America and stuff are just absolutely stunning. I think some of the stuff that they do there is just incredible, really, and the insight that they have, and you know what the Americans are like anyway. Everything has to be bigger and better and greener and bolder, and so from that point, yeah, footballing, yes, definitely, but kind of, which I think a few of the guys around Europe might not kind of agree with. thankfully they've come from England and that's where they started. So, but yeah, no, I think definitely in terms of if you're going to cross over sports, then golf in America, I think is definitely up there.
So Scott, we talk about some of those guys that are out there and doing it in different climates and different conditions. You're now also responsible for Udinese, if that's the correct pronunciation. How did that come about?
So the owners of Watford, so it's a family-run football club. The owner of Watford is the son, and the father owns Udinese. And the son is having a little bit more of a more active role in Udinese, and decided that he wanted me to go over there and have a look at pitches. They're having problems, and I've been over before, kind of when I first started at Watford. I think I'd probably been there maybe 9 or 10 months before I made a visit over there. And I kind of gave them some recommendations, and they didn't really follow it. But that was the only visit I had. And then in March last year, I got called to the training ground, and he asked me to go over. He initially wanted me to stay there for a few weeks. I didn't really feel it was necessary. It was just go over, assess what's happening and how we choose to move forward. It was decided basically that I would sort of kind of manage it from afar. I'd maybe make one visit a month, or as and when I saw fit. So if a fixture fell in England, that we had a 2 or 3 week gap where I'd get the work done that I needed to at Vicarage Road and at the training ground, and then go away to Italy for a few days and then come back, which was nice. But it was quite quickly apparent that actually they weren't listening to what I was saying, which was a bit frustrating because obviously I'm held accountable for it. So I took the decision to say to the owner, look, it's great that I'm going, but I either want it as it's mine or not at all, because otherwise I'm kind of being held responsible for stuff that actually I can't affect too much. Certainly not from another country. I was finding I'd go there and pitches were yellow, but fertilizer everywhere. So very evident that Scott was coming, so we need to put some fertilizer down. So and so that when I'm asking the questions, like what's been done? Oh yeah, we fed it. Yeah, but yesterday, not 3 weeks ago when you were supposed to, and little bits like that. So I think actively tried to take more of a sort of a positive role sort of just before Christmas this year. We then changed the contractors out there as well, who actually I've not met yet. I've still not managed to meet them just because of obviously what's going on at the moment. I was due to go the week after this kind of all started, so I think probably would have been the week before. Yeah, I think the week before the UK went into lockdown.
Right.
So yeah, I was due to go, but obviously my flights got cancelled and stuff like that. So not managed to get out there, but I'm still in contact with them. But I mean, we'll see. Hopefully, we can pick that up once this is all over, and maybe start to make some real positive differences there. We've made some positive impacts there so far, but it's just been little things, really little changes. But it's something that ideally I want to try and get hold of and make it my own, really make it the same standard at Udinese as it is at Watford, and hopefully try and progress both of those as well.
So is it stadium and the training ground you got there, or was...
Yeah, they're actually part of the one, all part of the same site.
Right. Okay.
The training ground, you've got the stadium, and then if you go into the car park from the stadium, there's then a little tunnel which goes underneath the road to the training ground, the other side of the road.
Right.
So it's quite a unique sort of setup, really. There's 4 grass pitches there, and I think equivalent to maybe 3 full-size pitches in artificial as well, but different shapes and different sizes, just sort of wrapping around the back part of the site. But a beautiful place to go. It's on a nice sunny day. You've got the Alps in the background and stuff like that. It's a beautiful training ground. It could be something really incredible if we can get kind of the right work taking place there and the right level of investment and stuff like that. But that's something that is pretty much on hold for now, unfortunately.
So for you, in terms of your career and what you want to achieve personally, I guess the next step is to get that to be a facility that you'd be proud to put your name against, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. I think at the moment it's one that I'm very happy to say, yeah, I do some consultancy for Udinese, but it's one that I'd like to say I'm in charge. It's mine. It's what I've made it, and kind of these are the improvements that I've made. That's probably where I'd like to take that place. I suppose Watford, really, again, the same. Really, it's something that, as much as I've been there 4 years now, it's ever evolving, and I kind of still feel we're halfway through a project. So I think there's more to do there as well.
So I guess you got best of both worlds. You're getting that experience of working abroad without actually having to permanently up sticks and go.
Yeah, it's a strange one though, because it's like I'm not great with the heat. I like the sun and stuff like that. I don't like to look out the window and see it raining and stuff, which it actually does quite a lot in uni. But just when it's hot there, it's just ridiculous. It's like the difference between so if you're looking at July, August in Udine, you're looking at 40, 45 degrees and 90%, 95% humidity, something like that, which, to be honest, for me as a southerner, just doesn't work. It just doesn't, like, it's just too hot. It's too sticky. It's horrible. You have a shower and then you sweat before you put any clothes on, and it's just strange. But then in January, it's -10. So there's a massive swing in terms of temperature, which, to be honest, for me is great to learn as to be able to transition from one grass to another and stuff like that. I suppose it's something you look at. Look at Paul, for instance, when he went over to Madrid. I would doubt probably had any kind of experience of managing warm season grasses, but very quickly had to learn and adapt and develop his ideas around that. But I mean, knowledge and experience are two very different things. I think having a knowledge of it and then actually experiencing how quick it can turn on you, how quick it can die, how quick, just how much water you have to put down, and how different like nutrient affects the grass and stuff like that, I think is something that you'll only ever really gain from experience of managing it. So I suppose in the event that ever happened to me, maybe I'd have more experience going into it to start off with, and maybe that would stand me in good stead. I don't know. Maybe it would be the wrong thing. So, but I'd like to think the experience is definitely benefiting me at the moment. So.
And have you looked further forward? You've got a route map for your career or anything?
No, not really. Not really. It's not something that I kind of like to do. I don't want to go, I want to end up here, I want to end up there. Yeah, I don't know. I think just be successful. I think just keep producing pitches worthy of Premier League quality. I think the Premier League, it's one of them. I've looked at it and thought, would I like to go to Spain? Would I like to go to Italy or to France or wherever? But I think the English Premier League is just massive. I think, and it's only ever going to get bigger. I'd like to experience like the highs of Champions League football again. Stuff like that. I used to love those nights at Chelsea when we used to have Champions League games against Barcelona, semi-finals and stuff like that. I'd like to manage a pitch for a tournament like that. Or for maybe Euros or World Cups or something. I suppose they would probably be the only dreams that I'd have, I suppose, in terms of the magnitude of the games that's being played on the pitch rather than necessarily where that pitch is.
Where do you see the industry going in particularly Britain, UK, whatever badge you want to put on it, over the next few years, assuming we come out of coronavirus and everything's fine in a few months? Yeah.
I don't know. I think if you look at the here and now, for instance, it's all right coming out the other side of that. But I think here and now, like the conversation we had the other day when we was in a group, I think people are going to have to go back to basics a little bit and understand groundsmanship a little bit more. I feel like maybe I don't know. One way of explaining that, I guess, would be my first season at Watford, my first full season on a renovated Desso and a pitch that was mine, and managing that for a season. To be honest with you, I don't think it would have been half as good if we didn't have the reinforcement of Desso. I don't think it would have been half as good if we didn't have pitch lights, if we didn't have all this modern technology and stuff that's there. And I just kind of wondered, like, it made me think, am I as good a groundsman as maybe my pitch is suggesting that I am? So I think there's a fine line between how it's great having all of this machinery and all of this equipment and all of these lights and everything else that can produce fantastic pitches, but is it kind of taking the skill out of groundsmanship a little bit maybe? I think it maybe pushes it in a different direction. And I think it's only ever going to get more extreme, I think. I think we're looking down the route of autonomous mowers and kind of disease-suppressing modules that can go out at night and scan your pitch for disease and stuff like that. Right? There's just so many different advancements to what we're doing. We've got hearing stories of people cutting their pitches and there's a little marker going around behind them marking out all the white lines, and it's just different to what I remember groundsmanship being when I first came into it and why I fell in love with it, really. And I don't think as an industry we should move away from that. I don't think we should lose sight of just going out there with a fork and a rake and doing little kind of doing handwork and not lose sight of what groundsmanship actually is. So I think I'm quite keen to make sure that doesn't happen. I don't think I kind of try and teach my lads, I think, as much as possible in terms of what they can do. I think a lot of the time it's like, oh, well, we need to go out and buy a machine that does this. No, we don't. You just need to have it explained to you as to how to do it, and best practice will always win, I think. I just think just not losing sight of that would be a good way of moving forward. But obviously the financial side of it is always gonna push it and drive it in a different direction. So just like to think that we can just keep it where it needs to be, really.
Scott, I was going to ask you who the biggest influence on your career is. Without putting you in a difficult position, I'm going to ask you who's had the biggest influence on your career?
It's a difficult one. I think, to be honest with you, I think there's 4 people that definitely have. I think if I start with my dad, definitely had an influence in me getting in the industry in the first place, and still likes to think he has an influence on me now. So I think my dad definitely won. Jason and Kevin at Chelsea definitely, because they showed me the ropes. They showed me, they enabled me to experience everything. They treated me as an adult when I was 16, 17, which at times I didn't enjoy because of the grief that I got. But it was a good grounding. It was something that I always think really fondly of my time at Chelsea. It feels so long ago, and half of me wishes I'd done them the other way around. Half of me wishes I'd started at Arsenal and learnt my trade and then gone to Chelsea, which is probably somewhere then where I would have just stayed. I guess the ambition of being a head groundsman maybe would have changed that, but Jason and Kevin definitely as well had a big influence on stuff that I do, and then of course Steve. If I had to pinpoint, if you put me on the spot and ask for one, then Brad's definitely, which I think is something that a lot of people would have the same answer. I think he influences people just by having a conversation. Some of the people that I saw have a conversation with him who was at the Turf Business Summit that had never met him before were just blown away by him. And he's a unique character, but I think he's somebody that if you've got the opportunity to have a conversation with him, and try and learn stuff from him, because you'll get something, guaranteed. It might be a 5-minute chat and you'll get something. So I think definitely Steve, 100%, if I had to be put on the spot, which I'm going to say you've done.